All right, guys, thank you for that update. We'll talk to you one more time. Right now, we're going to welcome our next live guest. We've got Paul Brashear with us from ITS Logistics. Paul, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hey, good morning, Kylie and Anthony. Happy Nevada Day from out here in Reno.
Nevada Day, is it the state birthday?
You know, I really don't know. I just know that we celebrate something on this day, and no state workers show up. So, and then Anthony, I'd be remiss if I didn't say go Aggies from some of the folks here at
Thank
downtown
you so much.
headquarters.
And
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate that. I hope James Hall Jr. is doing well out there, Las Cruces finest.
There you go.
Kaylee also has the Las Cruces connection, and we're excited to have you on this morning.
Oh, same here, guys. Same here.
All right, Paul, let's get into a little bit about your expectations for this peak season. I keep asking people, I'm like, is this a little peak season that like can't actually get going? That's kind of the analogy that I'm using here, right? It wants to, but it doesn't necessarily seem like we're going to have that true peak like we are used to.
Yeah, on the truckload side, it'll more than likely be muted. We're already through all of the ocean volumes that we normally would see this time of year. And, you know, there's usually a little bit of a lift after Lunar New Year and or before Lunar New Year. And we don't see that materializing going into Q1 as well. So more than likely be pretty muted and quiet December into January.
And Paul, one of the things I always talk to around the importance of the U.S. economy overall is the consumer's condition, how active they're going to be, what they're doing. How much is that going to impact what you're seeing right now within inventory levels and what we can expect going into 2023?
Yeah, that's the biggest concern that we're seeing is the level of inventory. We are getting from every sector of the economy and commodities requests for long-term storage, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And if the consumer doesn't show up in Q4 here, that's probably going to make this a lot more painful. So on our end, trying to make sure that the inventory gets to where it needs to be as close to the consumer as possible is our biggest focus with our clients. And then taking on additional temporary space to store slower moving SKUs. If you think about it, where we were at the beginning of this year, there was a lot of delayed freight that got into the supply chain after the consumer would normally use it. So your spring and your summer type goods didn't get there until after they would normally be used. And those are clogging up these 3PLs and these warehouses and these distribution centers. And a lot of our clients are trying to get the Q4 product into the supply chain in front of that. So our biggest concern is being nimble and helping our clients get that stuff to the consumer, but then also holding this other inventory for 3, 4, 5, 6 months to when it'll be used again early, mid next year.
So, Paul, if you're a shipper and you're trying to cost plan and cost forecast for your next year coming out for your 2023 budget, right? How do you kind of manage to both allocate funding and spend to hold on to those 3, 6, 9 months pieces of inventory that now have no use in your current winter products, but also now prioritize that winter product that does have use? Is it just you're going to have to dig deep into your pockets and find some extra cash to do that? Or is there any type of strategy that shippers can employ to make it efficient to do that?
So what we're consulting our clients on right now is to hold the inventory at those DCs that usually process those those ocean containers and that ocean freight. Bring it into a transload facility at the coast, flip it to 53s, and get it further inland to other DCs that might not be as congested and closer to the consumer. So, it should not, be too much of a pain to the wallet by doing that. I mean, you're adding an additional transload component to that. But if you think about it, having a bunch of freight sit on a container and accumulate a lot of per diem, chassis costs, storage costs, terminating that empty, getting it back, flipping it on a 53, which right now, if you look at spot market pricing for 53-foot dry vans going in, it's considerably cheaper, and in some instances cheaper than rail, domestic IM, and IMC movements to get that further in. And that should reduce a lot of pain. And that's kind of where we're seeing a lot of our folks go. And if you do have a ton of freight, which a lot of our clients do, we're pushing that in a little bit further inland to 3PLs that A, have more space and are a lot more cheaper per square foot, and indirectly would put it closer to a consumer when they need it to reduce that line haul as we get into Q2, Q3 of next year.
Paul, one of the big things that I'm watching here domestically, of course, is manufacturing with non-defense capital goods new orders, core capital good orders, really starting to continue to waver, but orders being canceled is very much a thing and a threat. When we're looking at things coming into the country from the ocean side, what's the landscape look like for orders from that standpoint? Are we seeing orders being canceled there, or is there a risk of that happening?
Yeah, the direct result of that inventory being so high is canceling orders. And you see that in the container rates for MVOs and steamship lines, just cratering right now because the demand's not there. So a lot of what we're seeing is that when you usually have this lift coming into January and February prior to Lunar New Year, it's not going to materialize at all. Our forecast from a lot of our clients are 4-6 weeks out, and that is probably the lowest I've seen since about 2017, 2016. And with West Coast and East Coast port congestion slowing as well, we're not probably until about Q2, into Q2, beginning of Q3 next year, going to see any kind of substantial inventory ordering from overseas, coming into the U.S. And one thing to call out too is that a lot of BCOs and shippers are sourcing a little bit closer to the U.S., right? So Mexico, Canada, and domestically, that's going to, kind of also taper off anything that we saw coming from Asia.
100%. And it's going to be interesting to watch, I think, coming through the end of this year. Paul, thank you for joining us today. If you want to get connected with you guys over at ITS out there in Reno, where can they go to do that?
You always go to the website, its4logistics.com. Our marketing team does a really good job with social media. I'm pretty sure there's Twitter and all kinds of other stuff out there. But ITS Logistics, Google that, and you'll probably find everything that you need to know about us. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and stay out of trouble next week at the event you're having out there, okay?
We are always far from trouble between me and Anthony. All right, we're going to head on over to Sydney Edwards. She's got a 10 a.m. check of your headlines for you.